listening to the Sonny Brown Breakdown. Now, it is time to break it down.
Welcome to episode number 17 of the Sonny Brown Breakdown, a podcast where we discuss the training, teaching, health, and education of mixed martial arts to help you find the difference that makes the difference. I'm your host, Sonny Brown, and in this episode I talk to Adisa Banjoko, aka Adisa the Bishop. He is the creator of the Hip Hop Chess Federation, author of a book titled Bobby Bruce and the Bronx, and the host of a podcast called The Bishop Chronicles. The Hip Hop Chess Federation combines the arts of hip-hop, chess, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and teaches positive life strategies to at-risk and incarcerated youth. We discuss how we formed the Hip Hop Chess Federation after an initial encounter in a juvenile detention facility where he found chess helpful to break down racial and social barriers, its development where traditionalists in each art were initially skeptical of the members of the other arts, and we go over practical examples of how chess, jiu-jitsu, and hip-hop can be useful metaphors for dealing with life struggles. And finally, how Adisa recently taught how to overcome creative blocks at a retreat with a Shaolin monk hosted by the RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan at his house. Now let's go to the podcast. Adisa, great to have you here, mate. How are you today? How's things?
I'm really good. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for having me on the show. You're really awesome. I love your videos, and I can't even believe I'm on the show. That's totally true. I'm a little extra starstruck because I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier. Like, I was literally like eating lunch, listening to it, and like I'm still juiced from it, so it's kind of weird. I'm having a starstruck moment. I'm just telling you.
Well, the feeling is mutual, mate, because I've been a fan of your work for a long time. I can't remember exactly when I first,
it was like
picked up the book.
2 years ago or something. It seemed like, right? Like maybe less. I don't know.
Seems like a while, but I can't even remember exactly how I found out about your stuff. It was, through good fortune, let's just say, that I found out about you and your organization and have been fascinated with it ever since. And yeah. I like, reading about it. I like reading about what you're doing. And basically what you do is you run the Hip Hop Chess Federation, which combines the elements of hip hop, chess, martial arts, particularly Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you use that as a vehicle to teach, say, positive life strategies.
Totally.
To kids, troubled youth, at-risk youth.
Especially troubled youth, yeah. Especially troubled youth. It's for everybody. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Hip Hop Chess Federation was founded in 2006, but it had been something on my mind for like at least 10 years, maybe 15 years before that, where it's just like, it's like, little scattered fragments of wisdom are kind of like floating through your brain. Like you're like, oh, that makes sense with that. And oh, that makes sense with that. And then, and I think that was because, I am a guy who didn't graduate high school. I got a GED because I was really like an alcoholic, binge drinker. Right. And so it made it so I didn't graduate, and I didn't have any direction. I mean, to be honest, like even if I'm honest about like how I got into drinking was because I just didn't have any direction. And so, I dedicated myself to hip hop at a very young age. And I was a journalist, but I was also an artist. And, what happens is I started noticing when I was young that there were a lot of rappers that were mentioning chess, and I love chess. I'm not a grandmaster. You've never seen me win any tournaments, but I love the game. And the thing that I always picked up from it was life decisions. When I was either playing or when I was watching other people play, I could pull like life things from other people's games. And that's what my gift was. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'd be like, oh, so in life, da-da-da. And like it would just stick with me. So long story short, I made a library of lyrics in my head that dealt with chess, and it would be like from Public Enemy, or it would be from EPMD. Obviously, this is before Wu-Tang, but then Wu-Tang Clan comes out, and they kind of perfect that whole idea. And the deal was that GZA from Wu-Tang and we met before Wu-Tang Clan. So me and GZA were cool before Wu-Tang Clan existed, when he was a solo artist on a record label called Cold Chillin'. And he's hella funny. So we were always in tune. And so basically one day, when I put out some books on hip hop called Lyrical Swords Volume 1 and Volume 2, I was invited to be a guest speaker in a Juvenile-hall, and it was like career day. So it was like, oh, we're going to have this guy talk about journalism and da-da-da-da. So then when I went in there, the kids was like, yo, you ever met Snoop? Well, I talked to him on the phone for an interview, but do you know Eminem? Well, do you know? And like, no one cared about what the hell I did at all. I was bombing. And quite frankly, I'm a good public speaker. I kill mics when I give lectures. So I was completely humiliated, like just bombing in front of all these kids. And so that particular weekend, I had bought a chessboard for my son, who was 4 at the time. He's 21 now. He just graduated. Congratulations, son. I love you. And so I had this board and pieces, and I was like, dude, you are bombing. You better figure out something. Cause I was like only 10 minutes in and I was dying. So I was like, teach him chess. You can waste an hour teaching chess. So I was like, all right. Quick show of hands. Like, who knows chess in here? And like 85% of the room raised their hand, and I couldn't believe it. And I was like, okay, that's no good. Cause they just ruined my plan. Cause I was going to teach chess and now they all know it. Right. So then I was like, all right. So who in here is really good though? Like, who thinks they're the best? Who can play in here? And a bunch of hands went down. Only a few went up. And I was like, we're going to have a tournament. And everybody who wins, I'll give one of my books to. That's what we'll do. So circle up. 2 kids are playing. They're both black. And there's this one kid, white kid in the hall, and he's sitting on the inner circle. And so this dude's getting ready to move one of his pieces, and he's like, don't move that piece. And he turns to him, he's like, shut up, white boy. Ain't nobody asked you about no damn chess. And he moves the piece, loses his queen. And everybody was like, oh, you lost your queen. And so now the white kid's getting all this respect. Right? It's like, oh, we got to pay attention to the white kid because he actually knows better. So then later, this kid he's literally like 300 pounds. And I said, who's the best? He said, I'm the best. And then you know how juvie is, man. Kids are really mean, right? So this kid was like, yo, this ain't no sandwich eating contest, fat boy. You can't win. So they was like, they're laughing at him. And I'm like trying to guard my laugh. I'm like, leave him be. He can play, bro. So he wins the tournament. The overweight kid. And so when I'm leaving, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. First of all, how do all these kids know chess, but they make horrible life decisions and they're in here for robbery, murder, stealing cars, right? But they play a game that teaches how to think better. Then I was like, you just saw racial divide melt when the white kid said, don't move your queen, made the mistake, whatever. His pecking order went up, right? And then the overweight kid, who everybody was laughing at in the beginning, ends up winning the tournament and his pecking order went up. And so I was like, what if, and I'm literally leaving. I have all my stuff. Everybody's like, oh, this was great. Okay, cool. I'm leaving. I remember where I was in the Juvenile-hall in the stairwell when it hit me. Cause I'm like, what if there was a way that you could teach kids about chess, but make it cool? And then it was like in that very instant, every rap lyric I remembered about chess, literally just like rain, came down in my head. It was like, Wu-Tang, Public Enemy, and I was standing there at the top of the stairs and I was like, hip-hop chess. So that was the beginning of it, you know what I mean? And then a year or so later, I ran into RZA through Sway and Tech from the Wake Up Show. Like they hooked me up with RZA, and then me and RZA became really cool really quick. I met him when he was giving a talk at a place called the Commonwealth Club here in the Bay Area, and I went in with my ex-wife. So like we went in there and like there was nobody in this room. It was just me, him, and her. And it was just like hella quiet. You're sitting hella awkward, right? So like I went to the event. He was not giving interviews. And, but my friend told me, he was like, go there and see if you can get in. But he's not supposed to be giving interviews. So all these press people had come and the lady was like, yeah, RZA's not giving interviews. So everybody shut up and get out of here. So I took my book and I signed it. And I said, hey, do me a favor. And she was like, what? I said, give this book to RZA. Tell him I'm a friend of so-and-so, and tell him I'd like to talk with him. And she was like, okay, but I don't know why. She goes back and she comes back. She's like, RZA will see you now. I was like, oh, and all the press people like, what the? I was like, later, boys. So I walk in, and so I sit in the back, and it's just like some some vegetables, some fruit, some water and tea, and him. And there's no one else in the room. And he's like, peace. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? Friend so-and-so, used to kick it with Jizza back in the day. And he's like, all right, cool. So then he looks at me and we're just kind of looking at each other and it's hella quiet. And he goes, yo, you know who Tom Mo is? And I was like, who? And he was like, Tom Mo. And I was like, no, I don't know who you're talking about. And he was like, he had this really disappointed face. And he was like, he's the guy that invented Kung Fu, man, right? Because he was like, I thought you knew about martial arts kind of a thing. And I was like, you know what? You're right. You're talking about Bodhidharma, and I always use that name instead of Tamo, but I know. And so then, like, as soon as he realized that, we just, boom, we clicked, and we've been cool ever since, you know what I mean? So I bumped into Josh Waitzkin. I was trying to interview Josh Waitzkin for my second book, but he never responded to anything. And then he responded, and he was dropping the Art of Learning. And so he was like, I got this new book. It's called The Art of Learning. Can I send you an early copy? It's not even ready yet. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, yo, I saw you did Tai Chi and stuff, but do you know about like Jiu-Jitsu? He's like, yes, I do know Jiu-Jitsu and I train Jiu-Jitsu. And I was like, what? So like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just crazy. And so that was like 2007. We did our first event in 2006. We did a quiet event with me, RZA, Josh Waitzkin, and DJ Cuber, and a few other people at the Omega Boys Club. And then after that, we did our big event, and it just kind of, kept going from there, man. It's crazy.
Wow, that is a fascinating way that's all come together, I gotta say.
I know.
Especially like Josh Waitzkin for Josh Waitzkin to be getting involved. Like, he's someone in my other podcasts that's come up a fair bit, and that book has come up a fair bit. And it seems like it was really just, I guess, you were putting yourself out there in that initial talk, and through a bit of fear and failure and improvisation, the creativity struck, and it became clear that this is a great way to help people and break down racial tensions.
Yeah, and just help people discover themselves, right? So like after I did that, like people were like, yo, like, cause we like when we did our second event, I mean, we were in the New York Times twice that year. Wow. We were in Good Morning America. We were I mean, the news was bonkers, right? And then so I came across a grandmaster, and we were talking on the phone, and he was like, yeah, man, I've been hearing a lot of stuff about your org. I keep hearing a lot of hype. And he kept using the word hype a lot. Mm-hmm. And I could tell that, like, I mean, come on, man, I'm not a grandmaster. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? So like, I know, like, like, I think that certain people in the traditional chess world felt a little threatened, and they still do. You know what I mean? Cause they're like, oh, this fucking hip hop guy, you know what I mean? Get out of here. You know what I'm saying? But the truth is, like, a lot of the dudes in hip hop are beasts on this board. I'm not a beast. I'm all right. But RZA will drag you. You know what I'm saying? My boy Rugged Monk, drag. Amir Suleiman, drag. Jizza, drag. Kadir Latif, like, I know DJ Cubert on the clock, drag. And so I know it felt a little offensive, right? Cause it was kind of like, if the traditional chess community is considered nerds, it's like the cool kids just came over, pushed them off look out the way. We're going to play chess now. And they're like, we've been doing this. You don't get to walk in and be cool. We've been here. And so there was like a little, so I told that grandmaster at the time, I said, hey, listen, man, my job is to point people towards you. I don't think that I'm you. Just like I know you don't think that you're me, even if you like hip hop, right? My job is to point people towards the game and towards the people who make it great. And you're one of the people that make it great. And that's all you need to understand. And I think over time, while I was able to talk to him, I think there were other people in the chess community that didn't understand that and didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? But Jennifer Shahadi, who is a great ally and friend, Josh introduced me to her, and she's always been really, she wrote a book called Chess Bitch, and she wrote a really good book called Play Like a Girl. And it's really dope. It's a history book of women in chess, but it also shows you moves that they specialized in, so you can learn to actually think like them. That's really dope. Like, that is one of the best chess books on the earth for me, because you learn about the history of chess and the women who were dynamic in chess, and you get to understand their specialty, their tactical specialties. And it's just a great book. You know what I'm saying? So, over time, like we got a lot of hype, but with that hype and with that momentum comes responsibility. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, okay, so what if Jay-Z knows how to play chess? So what if Public Enemy or RZA play? Who cares? What is that going to do? Right? And that's when I had to go inside myself and say, okay, what am I asking the game to do for these young people? And so that's when I started really doing the research that made the book Bobby Bruce in the Bronx happen. You know, it has worksheets in the back helping people think about, you know, short-term goal planning, long-term goal planning, risk assessment. You know what I'm saying? Sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? And you'll do all of that in one 5-minute match of jiu-jitsu. You know what I'm saying? Like, these things are very integrative, you know? And so, I put the book together. It took some time to do it. In between that time, I was lucky enough to get invited through Jennifer Shahade to, curate an exhibit on hip hop and chess at the World Chess Hall of Fame. And, my exhibit, the first day, brought more people to the World Chess Hall of Fame than any other exhibit before it, except for Bobby Fischer.
Yeah, okay.
Unbelievable. You know what I mean? And RZA came out, and there were lines around the block to get into the World Chess Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And people in St. Louis, and people were like, I have never waited in line to get inside the World Chess Hall of Fame.
Sure.
You know I can this has never happened. And I'm outside. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like a packed, crazy, beautiful event. And I remember Bobby Fischer's exhibit was upstairs. It's like a 4 or 5 story building. And like, there's people, there's music, the place is like rocking. It's me, RZA, all these people. It's hella sick. And I go upstairs to Bobby Fischer's exhibit, and it's just beautiful. Like, there was no one there because everybody, you know what I mean? So I was upstairs and I was like, I cannot believe I'm at the World Chess Hall of Fame. RZA is below me talking, and there's a film, like there was a film for it, all this other stuff. And it was very humbling. Like I was just grateful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just grateful. And so we've been able to reach a lot of people, do a lot of stuff in juvies. And I mean, now I'm here talking to you, bro. So I'm blown away.
My honor, mate. My honor. Trust me. And yeah, that book, I recommend everyone goes out and get a copy because I think it's fantastic, especially maybe, we'll go through some of those stuff in the worksheets as well. But I'm interested in discussing about, that pushback you got when you initially, kind of started to enter into the chess world. It seems like, you're taking those 3 traditional arts of, chess, hip hop, martial arts, which, stand on their own. I'm sure there is those crossovers where people, of course, will do multiple things, but you're kind of then taking the 3 separate arts, repackaging them maybe and presenting them as a cohesive whole. And I could see how they can, you are going to get a bit of a pushback from each traditionalists in those groups.
Yeah.
How do you think that they can all work together cohesively into one unit?
So that's a really good question. And it is a question that I asked myself in the beginning, right? Because I was trying to figure it out. And what I mean by that is I knew how it was helping me, right? Like, I understood how hip hop, chess, and martial arts, especially jiu-jitsu, was helping me. But I didn't really know what that would necessarily mean for someone else, especially someone that doesn't do jiu-jitsu or has no aspiration to do martial arts, right? So, a couple things. Like, how did my brain even work like this? Like, cause it's funny. I was recently talking with someone and they asked me, they said, cause they were from the hip hop community, hip hop originality is everything.
Yes.
Right? Originality is everything in hip hop. At least like from my generation. I'm old school. You know what I'm saying? So, like you needed to rap different. You needed to look different. You needed to, have beats that were different, so you stood out. So he was like, were you trying to like come up with some bonkers idea? Like what really was it? And you know what it was, man? So when I was young, I was really small. I told you I was like drinking, a binge drinker, you know what I'm saying? And I had to sober up on my own because I didn't even know AA existed. You know what I'm saying? Like once I realized that I had a problem, I was like, you got to figure it out. So I figured it out, and I've been sober since I was like 17, and I'm 50. You know what I'm saying? So that's a long ass time ago. And so my point is, I remember when I was training with Half, I started at Half Gracie Mountain View. You know what I'm saying? And I trained at Heroes Martial Arts, who was one of Half's, you know, top dudes. But me, you know, Gumby, BJ, Dave Camarillo, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like, we were all there at the same time. You know what I mean? I was just getting my ass kicked. They were champions. I was just getting my ass kicked. I was just a body getting dragged. But in between,
no shame in that. Those are some big names.
In between bandaging my arm and getting ice from my eye, I remember one day I was like, yo, Half, I was like, how do you do this move? And I don't really remember what the move was. I think it was an armbar from the mount. So he's like, you go here, 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 and then boom, you take the arm. And I was like, oh, that's like chess. Like in my own brain, like I'm trying to know how to remember the move. You see what I'm saying? And so my brain starts using chess visuals to remember how things work. Or if you go here and the guy goes here, right? That's like a chess puzzle, right? Like I move, they go here, and then you beat, and then checkmate, hooray. So then I was like, okay, so that's how my brain was first integrating jiu-jitsu and chess. And so when I started, like people weren't really digging it, man. Like hip hop people liked it already because of Wu-Tang. But I came into this understanding before Wu-Tang. Just, you know, as someone who was a fan of Bruce Lee and, you know, the Chinese martial arts explosion with all those films, like I was in the same vibe essentially as RZA and those guys. We just didn't know each other. You know what I'm saying? And the other part of it was coming into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I remember I interviewed Helio Gracie in 1998, and I interviewed Royce, and we were at the Torrance Academy, and I was hanging out with Horion, and I remember being like, this is bonkers, right? And I mean, I was a white belt. I had been training with Hal for probably about 3 months, I think, when it started. And then like, I remember going back home from LA, and I was like, the problem with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that there isn't a philosophy in it. It is a fantastic fighting style, but it is not a martial art. So I was like, okay, so what do you fill this void with of no philosophy? Because my head was like, you can create bulls and lions, but you won't necessarily create martial artists. And I still feel like that's largely happened with what became MMA, right? Like not jiu-jitsu, but MMA. And so I read the Book of Five Rings, right? I read The Art of Peace. I read all these different Taoists. I mean, I'm a nerd, so I'm diving into Taoism. I'm diving into Confucianism. I'm a Muslim, but I read everything, right? I'm reading the Bible. I'm reading the Torah. And I'm like, dude, like there's no philosophy for jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? And then I stopped training with Hal for a while, and I was training with Charles, his brother. So then, you know, like I said, for a while, I changed. I left house because, I was taking my kids more to my parents' house after work, and it was this whole thing. And then I started training with Charles. Cause Half Gracie SF had started, but it was like, it was too far in. Like I needed like a middle joint. So I started training with Charles. So one day at Charles's, this dude, he kept getting injured. He was a savage, but he kept getting injured. He kept coming in. So he tried to come in. He was a purple belt. I was blue at the time. And I was sitting next to Oliver, and Charles was sitting next to Oliver. So it was like Oliver was sitting between me and Charles. And the guy comes in, and Charles is like, don't train. You shouldn't be here. And he's like, no, because, you know, da-da-da-da. You know, in those days, you know, I mean, Half had a shirt that said, I still have it. It says, it's better to die than not to train. Like that was on the back of the shirt. You know what I mean? Like people would go in with busted arms. You would just, you know what I'm saying? But Charles, this guy's trying to come in, and Charles is like, get out, get out. So then finally the guy leaves. He's trying to debate with Charles. Like, please let me train. Please let me train. Charles is like, no. So the guy starts to go downstairs. This is old school, Charles Gracie in Daly City, which doesn't exist anymore. Shout out to Oliver. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Cristiano. You know what I'm saying? Himes. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, So Charles looks at Oliver because like Oliver's like, how come you won't let him train? You know, like I thought he was supposed to train no matter what, kind of a vibe. And Charles just looks at him really casually and goes, too much water, it kills the plant, huh? And I was like, overtraining. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can overwater the plant. I never forgot. I went home, I wrote it down. And then like I had this idea to make a list of quotes that I thought were motivational for jiu-jitsu, even if it didn't have to do with jiu-jitsu. So it would be like a Charles Gracie quote, something I remember from Half or something, then like some Confucian quote, then, you know, something out the Bible. And at the end of the year, I made a bunch of copies of it and I gave it to everybody I was close to in the school. In fact, Oliver, he still has it. Like he told me, I called it the writing of the sages. And it was just everybody's quotes. And so he was like, dude, I still have that, bro. He's like, I still read that. That shit's dope. And so I became like this quote dude. And so I realized at that point though, that jiu-jitsu had a philosophy, but it was not codified. It came from the training. Like, it wasn't like bomb, 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 bomb. It was like, you have to discover it and want to discover it. And so as I went forward, you know, I started like kind of gathering all these things and I realized like what I was trying to do was help make it so that people could have some type of guide inside the sport and inside the art to improve themselves. And as I started pushing these ideas, people in hip hop thought it was cool, but they could only think of the Wu. They didn't think deeper than Wu-Tang. Right? They didn't look into where Wu-Tang was getting their philosophies from. You see what I'm saying? They weren't looking at Buddhism for real. They were just looking at Shaw Brothers martial arts. You know what I'm saying? And like the chess people thought that hip hop was cool or they might like Public Enemy, but they couldn't look into the lyrics and see the value of what these lyrics were doing to motivate young people to play chess. Cause they were so focused on chess, they couldn't see hip hop as a viable tool. You see what I'm saying? The biggest place where I got the support was in the martial arts community, because these are guys that are listening to music to stay motivated, and they might be playing chess to elevate their brain. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. And so the martial arts community actually had the most love for me, whether it was jiu-jitsu people, kung fu people, karate people, judo, wrestling, whatever. And so initially nobody, you know, I think everybody like, cool idea, bro, but like they didn't know what to do with it. And I totally understood that. I didn't take it personally because I myself didn't have these answers, but I was determined to find them. So the first real breakthrough came when I realized that, you know, hip hop by all traditional East Coast perspective says that hip hop started in August of 73. Well, right before that, Bobby Fischer beat Boris Spassky for the world championship title. And people forget that chess was not this sidebar thing in America the way it is right now. When Bobby Fischer played Boris Spassky, PBS had its highest ratings ever, right? It was not a sidebar thing. Everybody was playing, right? And then around the same time, Bruce Lee dropped Enter the Dragon. Like these things happened on top of each other, bro.
Yeah.
Okay? And Bobby Fischer's from Brooklyn, right? And Kool Herc, the guy that really started making hip hop happen, he was in the West Bronx, right? And then you got like Washington Square Park, right? Where people are doing Tai Chi, right? And playing chess, you know what I'm saying? Like the chess hustlers are trying to get their money. And that's where the same parks where people are trying to like battle each other, whether it's in dance or in rapping. And so you can see, I could see the convergence, right? But at that time, each segment was so siloed, they didn't realize what was happening at the same time. Because the chess people are like, whoop, and the martial arts people are like, whoop, and the hip hop people are like, I'm doing something new. I don't know what's going on. And so everybody was different. You know what I mean? Everybody was in their silos, but they were influencing each other, you know, in some subtle ways. And so once I figured that out, that was enough and I was able to build on that. I was really able to build on that. And that's how I ended up making my book. I was interviewing everybody. I didn't care. I was talking to grandmasters like Maurice Ashley. I was talking to RZA and Jizza. I was talking to anybody, right? And so that's when before that book, I did a book called Lyrical Swords Volume 2, West Side Rebellion. It's not in print anymore. I don't even know if it's available anywhere. I don't know. But But that's the first book where I really I even interviewed Denny Procopos for that book when he was a kid. He wasn't even, you know what I mean? But I knew Denny was going to be bonkers. I knew he was going to kill the game with jiu-jitsu. I knew it. And so I interviewed him. You know what I mean? And it's just crazy, man. It's just crazy. I think I interviewed Raka from Dilated. You know what I'm saying? I interviewed RZA and Jizza for that book. And so that became the seeds that became Bobby Bruce in the Bronx down the line. You know what I mean? And so it was just crazy, man. It was crazy. And then everybody kind of started seeing the connections now. And it's funny because I was at a tech event and I ran into this guy from Google and he didn't really know who I was, which made sense. And then I mentioned something about chess and jiu-jitsu and he goes, and hip hop, and he goes, people say there's a lot of connections between that. I've been seeing a lot more about it. And I was like, that's me. I'm not, but you know what I'm saying? But I don't care now that nobody knows that it was me dragging all this stuff together, to help make it happen, to see the connections. But, it wasn't an easy thing to achieve in the beginning. But once people started seeing it, it started taking its own life. And that's why I don't really care how much credit I get for it or not. I don't care. There are other organizations that go, oh, we do hip hop and chess and stuff like that. And it used to piss me off because I was like, that's all my stuff, bro. But then I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. What matters is that they're able to reach kids that I don't have access to. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? Whatever, bro. Like everybody's got to get the wisdom how they get it. That's all I care about,
Yep. Well, I think everyone should know about what you're doing. That's for sure, mate. That's for sure.
Thank you.
So I mean, I'm looking at it like it, you've got those three different arts blending together to create something, a bit unique. As, coming from a martial arts perspective, it, could consider it like the arts of striking, takedowns and submissions combining together to create MMA and to create something new on its own. But I guess the thing with that example is that all three of those arts, are useful in a combat setting. Would it be that these three separate arts, the thing that they share in common is how they can be used outside of their realm? I mean, they're all enjoyable activities, but the common link is like looking at it as a way to deal with other issues or other problems in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's exactly it, right? Like the idea is that you're dealing with a fusion of logic and art, right? You are dealing with things that are all still sports, right? But what you're really finding is that at the highest level, like, how do you know, like, who's the best rapper? How do you know who's the best in jiu-jitsu? How do you know, right, who is the best at chess? They got to battle, right? There's something about doing it that has its own beauty. But battle is where you find the highest essence of that thing, right? Whether it's Eminem. If you look at Eminem battling people at Scribble Jam, in YouTube, go on, look. I mean, like, he is murking people spontaneously. It's not just that this guy can write songs. Like, I realized early this Eminem kid's going to be a problem for the earth because I was watching him demolish people. You know what I'm saying? Before YouTube on Scribble Jam VHSs. But what I'm saying is, like, how do you know who's the best in jiu-jitsu? Because you got to watch Abu Dhabi, right? You got to watch EBI. You got to watch, right? Because that battle, it brings out the best in people, right? And so I realized that if they could use each thing to bring out the highest element of their artistic, logical self, they would always be really prepared to deal with anything that happened to them. And then I was working with a teacher at a school in San Jose where I first put my program together. Like when I put all the worksheets together, I was working at a high school in San Jose in a tough area, and I was teaching. They were the first kind of like quote unquote guinea pigs of this whole concept once I put it together. And one of the teachers there, he said, "Hey man," he's like, "Do you know about executive function?" And I was like, "No." And he started talking to me about like executive function of the human brain and like how it is like kind of like the air traffic control center of your brain that helps you multitask and all this other stuff. And that's when I really realized like all three of these arts tap into executive function. They help exercise and strengthen executive function. And he was like, dude, if you're building executive function in young minds, they're going to win regardless. You know what I mean? In whatever, you know what I mean? Cause that your brain will always be adaptable, always have a sense of fluidity, always kind of have a heightened sense of how to problem solve. And once, his name was Dan Gilday. Dan, what up, Dan? He really changed my whole understanding of what this fusion could do for young people. Once I learned about, you know, the role of cognitive function. And so that's really, why people could talk about STEAM, right? I mean, STEM, yep. You know, education, right? This is STEAM, right? Adding the art component. And if you look at every culture in the world in its ancient setting, STEAM was always a part of it, right? It was only in like, I would say like after the medieval periods where like mathematics, religion, music, art all get separated, right? If you look at a pyramid, you're looking at STEAM. That's mathematics and art, right? That's science aligning with the stars, right? Okay, there's, you know, whatever stars up above. You look at the Kaaba and Mecca, right? It's aligned with, I'm blanking on the star right now. I feel bad. But like, if you look at, a lot of the ancient, Mayan and Incan structures, that's all STEAM, right? Stonehenge, all this stuff. It's a natural thing in us to fuse our science and fuse our art. It's actually unnatural to separate it. Mm-hmm. So when I do music, chess, and martial arts to promote unity, strategy, and nonviolence, that's actually tapping in to our natural, traditional self before, you know, all of these modern structures kind of like separated them.
Yeah, okay. That's actually one of the best cases of advocating adding the arts back into STEAM, or you know, back into STEM that I've actually heard. It really makes it clear.
I wrote an article about it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, okay. Because I know that when that was happening, like not everyone was on board, you know, with changing the word and everything like that. But
yeah, you know, no, truly.
It really, it's a really good way of looking at it. And so I also like too that it doesn't, you know, when you, I guess it can be advocated for without the need to just be purely like a philosophical side of things, but that, you know, that cognitive function and executive function gives it something too that's a basis in, you know, in science that it can, you know, grab onto. So I really like the way that's all kind of flows together in a nice mix.
No, it does. It's authentic. And I know that it looks bizarre to a lot of people. And I know, especially in terms of hip hop, right? Like people be like, yo, man, like I like the idea of like, chess and I like jiu-jitsu, man, but hip hop's crazy, bro. Like I'm not really trying to, and it's like, I understand that on the surface. Cause if all I knew hip hop was what I heard on the radio, I would believe it too. I would totally believe it. But like any other given thing, like, if you tell people you do jiu-jitsu, people initially assume, Sonny must like to fight all the time. Maybe he's got anger issues or whatever, right? But they don't understand that jiu-jitsu is what makes Sonny peaceful. Mm. It's what makes you relaxed. It's what gives you your patience. They don't understand like that inner thing. Hip-hop is the same way, man. Like there's a lot of beautiful philosophical hip-hop out there that has been there. Some of it's really popular, some of it's not, but it's always been a part of the art of hip hop. But if you're only focused on, you know, the music that celebrates the naked chicks and the drugs and everything else, I understand it. But that too is a problem. That's a societal issue. You know what I'm saying? Where people are just explaining like what's around them. And sometimes they do celebrate it in unhealthy ways. But what young people ever saw life correctly?
Right.
They didn't, right? These are kids. They know, you know, a lot of them don't really know, and they're, or young adults, who haven't really figured it out yet. And so, you know, I'm not advocating for all hip hop. I'm not advocating for every rap song and every rapper. I'm advocating for the ones that do show, you know, cultural, academic, and moral wisdom in their art. So I'm not an advocate for all hip hop. I am an advocate for the hip hop that champions unity, that champions nonviolence, that champions the acknowledgement of others' humanity. Because when you play a chess game with someone, right, no matter whether you win or you lose, you honor them as a person. You will, wow. You know what I'm saying? Now, that person could be a rabbi or they could be a gangster. You're going to honor that person, right? So the next time you see another gangster, you'd be like, hey, you know what? I played a gangster and he smashed me on the boards. That was crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Or when you do Jiu-Jitsu, right? They could be another race, another religion. They could have no religion. They could be a philosopher. They could be a carpenter. They could be a scholar on a college campus, and you have another level of respect for them. If you compete with someone artistically, whether it's graffiti or rap or on turntables or dance, like you have a higher level of respect. And so what I'm hoping to do is to inspire people to first find their own sense of humanity through whichever one they choose. We don't try to make people be hip hop artists or MMA fighters or chess masters. We want them to use these three things and quiz them about what they want to do with their life and who they want to be, so that we can help them be that. You know, some of the kids that I mentor, they just, like one of my friends, he's a friend now. When he was a teenager, he was a little gangster dude who just really wanted to be put up drywall. He's like, I don't want to go to college. I just want to go to drywall. I just want to do drywall. I was like, cool. And he's living a great life, not on the street, handling business, right? And then somebody else, he wants to go to college. Okay, well, let's help you get some stuff. And then he goes to college and does his thing. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So it's not about anything other than using these things to find out who you are, acknowledge the humanity in others, and go be great. That's it.
Yep. I love that. That's, just using these vehicles, well-developed, established cultures, and taking their teachings as tools to help you progress, and especially focusing on helping young people, being able to tackle life's challenges with it. It's just awesome. So I think too, with taking the three parts, I mean, each one kind of has their own negative stereotypes that needs to be broken down, that each one looking at the other one probably thinks is the case, so like, MMA or martial arts is thugs, like you said, barbaric thugs.
Human chicken fighting.
Yeah. Human cockfighting, just like, stupid as well. Like they're all dumb.
Right.
Yeah. And then people looking at chess is just, nerds who lack.
Pure nerds who have no social engagement. Right. You know what I'm saying, right?
Right. And then, hip hop would just be, glorification of drugs and violence, right?
Exactly. And sex and stuff. Right. And it's like, why would I want that in my life?
Yeah, exactly. Right? So that, from the outside looking in, people probably going like, I don't want any of that. I want to, whatever, go for a walk. Exactly. But I mean, probably people listening to me probably, already have a good understanding of the, how that's not the case in the martial arts side of things, I'd imagine.
Right.
The chess, I think we'll probably get into, with some of the chess strategies as well. But what about, specifically with hip hop? You mentioned when it's broken down into like the 4 elements of hip hop and how that, that is more fully developed than just that negative stereotype. Could you let people know about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So like the main thing is this. So, one time when I first got invited to the World Chess Hall of Fame, I was speaking with Susan Barrett, who was the director at the time, and, Jennifer Shahadi and some other people. And, she was like, okay, I don't know about hip hop. Like, what is it? Like, I believe that you're onto something awesome, but what is it? Because what happened is I had been on the cover of Chess Life in 2012, and then that's what got me the invite to go to St. Louis and talk with the World Chess Hall of Fame. And I said, okay. I said, so look at your hand, right? I was like, you have rap music, right? You have hip hop dance, like b-boying, stuff like that, right? You have graffiti, right? And you have DJing, right? So you have those 4 elements. And then I said the 5th element is knowledge, right? Knowledge, right? And that knowledge is supposed to be the knowledge of yourself, right? So the idea isn't that you come into hip hop pretending to be black, pretending to be, a tough guy, pretending to be a gangster. You bring your knowledge, your wisdom, your culture, and you feed it into these other 4 things. And that is the hand of hip hop, right? That is the hand of hip hop. And so I said, rap music is one aspect, right? So if we just focus on rap and we just talk about what rappers say and do and whatever, We'll get lost in that all day. But hip hop is a beautiful art form where you're painting, where you are dancing, where you are spontaneously thinking and doing poetry. And so I said, that's really what we need to cultivate. And so when people only mistake rap for all of what is hip hop, it creates, you know what I mean? It creates some confusion, and that's fine. I understand. I understand why people don't get that part, but that's not what it is. And so, you know, because everybody has different modalities of learning, right? Mm-hmm. Like some people are naturally more artistic. Some people are more vocal verbal. Some people, you know what I mean, are more cerebral. And so all of these aspects of what constitutes hip hop helps you improve who you are. And if you have knowledge of self, again, meaning don't pretend to be black. If you're Native American, bring that, right? If you're Japanese, bring that. If you're Canadian, bring that, right? That makes hip hop better, right? It doesn't help hip hop if you come in mocking someone else, right? And you know, as a martial artist, you know, a lot of how you play your game is based on your body type, right? So like you can try to do a game like someone who's short and stocky, but I'm 6'3". I can't do a short and stocky game. And vice versa, right? Or there may be aspects of the short and stocky game I can use, but there's a limit to that. And then I got to start playing more like Hiron. Then I got to start playing more like Nogueira. Then I got to look at what is Keenan doing, right? Because he's got a body type more like mine. And even whatever Keenan's doing, all that ain't going to work for me. I still got to do my game, right? And so like when I tell my students, I said, I'm going to give you jiu-jitsu and then you're going to make it your own. Your goal isn't to be like me. Your goal is to be you. And so you may have different instincts, intuitions, whatever. And I want you to do that. So I'm giving you your baseline so that you can discover the jiu-jitsu player that you are, not to be a replica of me.
Okay. That's beautiful. And so, yeah, all those elements of hip hop too involve, you know, the nature of battle, right? There's, you know, breakdancing battles, graffitis, you know, people.
Yeah, they have graffiti battles all the time. You know what I'm saying? Graffiti battles are beautiful. One of the things I learned when I was going to St. Louis, they have, I guess the biggest graffiti wall in the world, I think, is in St. Louis, and it's called Paint Louis. And what they do is they have all these graffiti writers from, I think they're all American, but they may be from overseas as well. And they paint this 1.5 mile long wall. That's huge, bro. Beautiful work. You know what I mean? And like, it's competition, but the nature of that competition is what brings the best out of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have this topic, that I talk about in the book called How Your Enemies Improve You. Right? How your enemies improve you. And what is that about? That is like someone who's doing jiu-jitsu with you, right? It's his job to undermine all of your weaknesses. Right? And so if after the thing, like, you might be a good guard player, but you don't know how to recover side control. Right? Like, when the person that tells you that, and you might be like, damn, this fool said I couldn't recover side control. But then you think about it and you be like, damn, he's kind of right, though. I really couldn't recover my guard, right? I couldn't really recover my guard. That person has just improved you. Right? But your homie might know the same thing when he rolls with you, but he ain't going to say it. He's not going to tell you, right? He's like, man, I have fun, Sonny. This was great, man. Let's go get some acai. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not, you know, and it's because he's your homie, because y'all are homies, right? And you're like, eating acai, like, what a great day. And he's like, yeah. And he may not even be doing it deliberately, but your enemy will tell you, you can't recover. You, if I pass your guard, you can't get it back, right? That is your enemy improving you, and that is his job. When your friend plays chess with you and he mops you with his knights, that's his job. And it's your job to be, okay, how do I neutralize the advancements in the knights, or at least force him to lose one of them so that I can like survive long enough to castle and get my game going, because he's killing me with these knights. That's how your enemies improve you, right? But then, like, you know, you deal with these kids who can't deal with like simple, you know, social pressures, simple, you know, issues, you know, whether it deals with their homework or this or that. And it's like, yo, man, you've got to be tough. You've got to weather the storm, find your moment, step into it. And that's how your enemies improve you.
No, I really like that, because especially it seems like it makes sense then, you know, you've got the enemies of, you know, in life, who can improve you. And we're taking all those, you know, the battle of chess, martial arts, and that battling side in hip hop, and we're learning about ourselves and the outside world in those battles. And then we can take that and transfer it onto the battle of life, shall we say, you know, the battle of everyday living, right?
You know what I mean? Of school, you know what I mean? And you don't take the pressure personally. That's the idea. That you don't take the pressure that they put on you personally. That pressure that they put on you is what makes you better. It's what improves you. It's what helps you rise to the occasion, because whatever you saw Muhammad Ali do, whatever you saw Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, any of these guys do, they could only do it to the degree that their opponent put pressure on them so they could, I gotta go like that. Boom, he makes the shot. That's right.
Yep.
If your opponent's like, go ahead and make the shot, you're not going to get good.
Yep. He's
got to make you feel you have to do everything in your heart to make it happen. And that's how those moments happen. Whether it's was it Braulio Estima when he triangle choked, the dude from Atos? Remember when he had that crazy, I'm not sure. There's a match that I'm thinking of. I think it was Braulio Estima, and he triangle choked, the brother from Atos. I'm blanking right now because my brain's scattered. But like, I know that triangle choke didn't come easy as my point.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He just didn't give it to him. He had to figure it out. You know what I mean? He had to explode. He had to believe. He had to own that moment. You know what I mean? So that's what
I get you. If every match is an easy match, then you're never going to be great. Right?
Yeah.
You're never going to reach that, be forced into out of your comfort zone where you pull off something once in a lifetime incredible if you're just cruising all the time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. No, it's a good point. And I love that idea of the opponents, because something I've always thought about, or I think I read in a book by Carl King, it's like the idea that you're going around life and you've got a sign on your forehead or on your back or something that says something about you, and no one is ever going to tell you what that is. Except your enemy, you know? They're gonna tell you, but no one, there's something, but no one's gonna say, man. No one's gonna say what it is. You're just gonna be left to stumble around. But that's in a battle. Yeah. They're going to let you know, right?
yeah, every time.
And you got to be grateful for that, because, thanks. Now I'm a little bit less ignorant, even though maybe it hurt, but okay, we can improve from that. Like I've always said, I'd rather people would joke to my face than behind my back. At least if they're joking to my face, I know, okay, it's still cool.
Exactly.
Someone said something behind your back, then, oh God, they're not happy.
Yeah.
So I love it. So when we then get into the, how you're giving these lessons to kids, like the actual, we know how it all works, how it all links up now. Yeah. When the rubber hits the road, how we give the lessons to the kids, how are you actually going in and doing that? And then I'd love to get into some of the specifics that I've got a list here, but if we get into first, just how you're going through the actual motions.
So the first job is to usually help them just love chess. And I just got a message from a young lady who heard me on my podcast on Bishop Chronicles. And I was like, look, just play chess. Don't worry about trying to become a master. Just, do it. And she was like, well, why are you encouraging people not to become a master? Like, I don't understand. And I was like, because you have to teach them to love the game first, right? You don't want to master anything you don't love. And in order for you to love it, you have to like it. You have to like it, right? So if chess is like a chore and it sucks, like you're not going to want to be a chess master. If jiu-jitsu is just rowdy and you're getting slammed and broke up all the time, you're not going to want to master it. You see what I'm saying? But, and this is why I love the dynamic role that drilling has played in over the years. I love how Hiron talked about keeping it playful.
Yep.
Right? It's not like murder every round, every time, right? You have to have fun with it. And it's from that place of fun that you find your creativity. It's from that place of fun that you find the time to think about a position in a way you couldn't if the person was just trying to take your head off every time. And so the first thing I do is I try to just keep the kids to enjoy chess, just to enjoy it. Right? Then now that you enjoy it, then now they want to be competitive. Oh, I want to play you, you play me, blah, blah, blah. Now I can introduce the life strategies, right? When I go into juvenile halls, whether they're in St. Louis. And we have a program in St. Louis that's gone on since 2014. Shout out to Michael Wessam. He's the guy that works in the St. Louis. He's ran that on his own. You know what I mean? Like since 2014. Like he's a martial artist and he's a chess player. You know what I'm saying? But he just makes the kids fall. We can't really show them jiu-jitsu in the hall because obviously there are, you know, the people in the hall who, you know, can't afford for kids to be knowing chokeholds for a bunch of reasons.
I hear you.
Right. Right. But so for kids who are in the hall, I'm just going to teach them chess and life strategies. Right. That's all they're going to get. Okay. But like at schools, when I teach, it's usually a mix of just chess fundamentals and jiu-jitsu fundamentals, but a lot of the jiu-jitsu fundamentals actually don't really deal with submissions. They just deal with how do you escape a headlock?
Yep.
How do you not get headlocked? Oh, you know, your older brother grab you by the head, you know, or your homie grab you by, how do you get out of that? If you get pinned, mount escapes. You know what I mean? And so, I really don't show, a lot of submissions in the high schools and stuff like that because I just, you know, people
makes sense.
Even though you're teaching these kids, it's dangerous, and especially like if you teach in you know, gang related areas, you know what I'm saying, stuff can get crazy real quick. So because I don't know their temperament, right, I need to make sure that I'm giving them things that will keep them safe but not potentially harm others. And it's only after I know that, okay, this kid's like legit, now I can point him in the direction of a school, call the guy, say, hey, you know, this kid's legit, let him train with you, you know, whatever. Or they may go on their own, like, yo, I just joined at House in Berkeley, or, you know what I'm saying, I just joined Heroes, or, you know what I'm saying, I just joined Denny's. Okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So that's how it really plays out is, it's not a one size fits all thing. I kind of have to tailor make my situation for the kids. My first actual student, was a young man who, in retrospect, like, I'm not really sure if he was autistic, but he might have been on the Asperger's spectrum. You know what I'm saying? He was very shy, didn't have a lot of friends, etc. And actually, even though it sounds crazy, Hip Hop Chess Federation used to have a whole competitive cheerleading branch that competed like all over the country and was good. And
it's all battling. It's all battling.
Yeah, exactly. And so and they all played chess. So, his sister was a cheerleader. And so his dad was like, yo, you know, would you be interested in teaching jiu-jitsu to my son? And I was like, yeah, you know. So he came in and he barely spoke. And I mean, when I say barely spoke, like barely hello. You know what I mean? So I said, well, can I show you what jiu-jitsu is? And he says, okay. So I show him escape from the mount. I show him whatever, you know, passing the guard. And so then we sat down and I was like, do you play chess? And he's like, yeah. So we played a game of chess. And I was like, now, do you see how that happened? That's just like when this happened. Doesn't that make sense? And he was like, yeah. And so I was like, do you want to learn jiu-jitsu? And he was like, yes. So he came through. He trains with me for like 3 months. And I think it was the US Open comes. And I said, you know, do you want to compete? I think you could do good. And he was like, yeah. So then like his dad was so nervous, right? Cause he's like, yo, like if he gets mopped, I don't know what's going to happen to my son's brain. Like, is he going to be hella sad? Like, I don't know. And I said, well, look, I think he can do it. I think we ran through enough, whatever. So the day of the competition, we show up and, you know, his was like I think it was like the first match of the day, you know, so the place is empty. You know what I mean? We're at the US Open in the Santa Cruz, place is empty. And, I can see the other kid in the bullpen and he's looking at my guy. My guy's looking at him and I can see he's getting nervous. You know, now he's like, dang, it's getting real. Like I'm actually going to go out here and have a match. And I said, come here, bro, come here. So then he's like, what's up? I said, you know who Garry Kasparov is? The chess grandmaster? And he was like, yeah. And I said, so listen to me. He said, never let your opponent show you what they're capable of. Do you know what I'm talking about? And he's like, yeah. I said, bro, when that ref says go, shoot. Don't wait. Don't circle. Don't, you know, wonder. Right? And all you have to do is do what you were trained to do. Okay? You know the route. You know what we're trying to do. You know the positions, right? So there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing will happen to you that you haven't already felt. You've been cross-choked before. You've been arm locked before. People have had your back before. People have passed your guard. But you've also done the same. So when that guy says go, shoot, handle your business. And just listen to me. He's like, okay. I said, remember what Gary Kasparov said? He goes, okay. Bro, I got the video. As soon as the dude says go, he just drops. Boom! Gets the mount off top. And the kid turns his back. Mataleon, bro, he took silver that day.
Beautiful.
He took silver that day. But it wasn't about the medal. It was that he went out and he did it. And like his father could not believe that that was his son. He couldn't believe it. And that was a dope moment.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That was a dope moment. And, you know, there were a lot of those little moments that come and go. You know, to be fully fair, there's a lot of kids that I lose to the streets. You know what I mean? You have a kid you're mentoring. Like one of the first group of kids I mentored at one high school, this one Latino dude, he was in high school. I was like, what you want to be? He's like, I want to be a scientist. But he didn't know any Latino scientists. And so I would tell him about how the Incans invented the zero around the same time as the people of India, but they never had any contact. I was like, isn't that crazy that two people who live so far away have the same idea, but they don't have any contact? That's nuts. Whatever. Anyway, get to the summer, bro. By the time I come back, he's a validated gang member. He don't care about chess. He don't care about nothing but the streets. And I don't even know where he's at right now. And there's a lot more of them than the kid that I just told you about. But you have to go through these things and you have to kind of like depersonalize it. You know what I mean? It was hard for me. I got really emotional back in the day. I lost a lot of kids to the streets. A lot of the boys became bangers. Some of the girls became prostitutes. Some of the kids just got killed. You know what I'm saying? But then you have other kids who graduate. Like one of the kids who I mentored went to Pitzer College on a full ride, and now he's going to medical school to be a dentist. You know what I'm saying? And so you never know what's going to stick. You don't know what's not going to stick. I just stick to my script. Kids stay, kids go, kids grow, kids get killed or fall off, and you just have to keep going.
Wow. Yeah, man, really puts it in perspective when you think a lot of people might complain about losing a student to go join another jiu-jitsu school or something like that. But there's, you know. Right.
and he's representing Norteños in the media.
Yeah. Like, that's a big deal. And it could be worse. Far out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Far out. Okay, so... Yeah, so when you go into the schools, you're teaching the kids life strategies. I think, you know, a good place to start would be one of the things you promote is the idea of the chessboard and the open mind. Is that a good place?
Yeah, the chessboard and the open mind, right?
Is that a good place to jump off?
That is because, you know, what I'm trying to teach people about is like the chessboard obviously is a checkerboard, and it reminds me of the yin and the yang, right? You look at the yin yang, you've got the black with the white dot, you have the white with the black dot. And, depending on how much you study Taoism, you know what I'm saying? You know, it looks like just a polar opposite thing, right? But it also teaches people to see, the good in something bad or the bad in something good, right? To be less judgmental. Right? But when you look at the chessboard, what you're really looking at is infinite potential. When you look at the chessboard, you know, and you can look up the numbers for yourself, like, you know, as soon as each person moves, like all of the potential that's on that board in terms of moves, like outnumbers the stars. You know what I'm saying? And when you can see that your own mind has that same flexibility, has that same potential, and all you have to do is tap into it, all kinds of new things happen. I think that one of the main reasons that kids, especially disenfranchised youth, like fall for drugs, fall for alcohol, fall for you know, pimping and everything else and gang life is because they don't see how many options are available. They think that, you know, oh, well, you know, everybody in my family's broke, so I'm gonna be broke, or everybody in my family bangs, so I'm a bang, or whatever. And really, that's not the case. You always have options. And so I like to teach people to understand that their mind is just as infinite in its potential as all the moves on the chessboard, but they have to trust it, and then they have to act on it.
I like that. I like that a lot. And then so it seems that one of the tangible ways you can put that into effect is you've got two kind of equations, one being the 3PA is better than 1 NT, and then the PPC code.
The PPC code, right. So 3 PA is greater than 1 NT, right? That means 3 positive actions are greater than 1 negative thought, right? 3 positive actions are greater than 1 negative thought. And what that really deals with is coming to grips with taking charge of your life. One of the things that I love about chess is that when you sit down at a board, that board don't know whether you're black or white, don't know whether you got one parent, two parent, no parents, don't know whether you're hella rich or hella broke. Like, it doesn't know. It's only going to reward the person who brings the best moves. End of story. That's it. That's all. So, what three positive actions greater than one negative thought is about is like a lot of times when people have anxiety, right? They're concerned about the future to a point that they can't control it, and they're stressed out by it. When people are depressed, they're locked into the past, whether they were abused or they made a mistake and, whatever, right? But they can't change that either, right? You can only change right now. And so what 3PA is greater than 1 NT is about taking 3 positive actions in every day to combat a negative thought in your brain. So I normally talk about it to kids in terms of an algebra test. So let's say you're 3 weeks away from an algebra test and you're doing okay. You'll probably get a C based on where you're at right now, right? Well, what 3 things can you do today to be better at algebra? Okay. You can go on the YouTube, right? You can call your teacher, say, I don't know what's going on here, right? Or you could reach out to a student, right? And say, hey man, I noticed like you understand some of these equations better than me. Can you help me? Right? Okay. That's for today. Now tomorrow you may do 3 totally different things, right? You may talk to a family member, right? You may, go back and look in the book, the chapter before that you're in, just to kind of make sure your fundamental understanding of algebra is okay. And you may, look at some old tests you did and try to correct them yourself. Right? But these were measurable steps, right? 3 weeks from now, if you do 3 things every day, you won't be stressed out. You'll sleep better. And chances are you're going to get a much better grade. But not because you're Superman. It's because you took action, right? That you don't let the world happen to you, right? That you take control. And the world, look, there's always things that you can't control. Like, if your principal or your parent or the teacher you're dealing with isn't cool with you, whatever, you can't really control that. But they can't stop you from studying. They can't stop you from, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And it takes 21 days to make a habit. It takes 90 days to create a lifestyle. And so if you can make a habit of taking moves when you're doing chess, right? When you're in a bad position in chess, like if you're playing Scrabble, you can throw your bad letters back, right? Pick a whole new set of letters and try to play it off. Chess ain't like that. You got to deal with the position as it is. If it sucks, it sucks. Figure it out. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Whatever. And so that's what 3PA is greater than 1 NT is about. So I usually, even for myself, when I'm going through really dark times and really weak times that are bothering me, I figure out, okay, well, what 3 things can I do today? Right? And what happens is when you make a habit of doing 3, then all of a sudden you be like, oh, that was easy. Let me do a 4th thing. Let me do 10 things. Right? And then all of a sudden, like nothing's just going to happen to you because your default setting is to be like, oh, it's looking bad. I bet I could do this though. Or you know what I'm saying? My job, my boss is getting on my ass right now, but I bet I could do this though. Right? And you become a solution-based person. Right? So that's for short-term, goal setting. Right? Now, the PPC code is patience, planning, and courage, right? And so it's like a triangle, right? So at the base of the triangle, you have your planning, because you can't do nothing without a plan, right? Mm-hmm. Then you have patience on the left side, and then you have courage descending on the right. So planning speaks for itself. If you don't have a plan, you usually kind of lose your way or whatever, or waste a lot of energy, even if you do make your goal, right? But then we talk about patience. Patience, I think, is a misunderstood, beautiful thing in the world. Like one of the last times that I was down in Torrance, which is a long time ago, but I was there and I was hanging out with Hiron, and there was a shirt and it said "Paciencia," right on the chest, and then under it said "Lose this, lose everything." And I love that shirt. I wore it out. You know what I'm saying? I wore that shirt out, right? And so, but the reason is because I had already had the PPC code when I saw that shirt, but I really wanted it. But the deal is patience, right? When I say patience to most kids, I go, so what does it mean when you're patient? And they always go like, I'm waiting. Like, yeah, like you're waiting in line for a hamburger or something, right? And I was like, yeah, I said, but that's not what patience is. Patience, going back to the PPC code, right? Because we're going from short-term goal planning to long-term, is the work you do while you wait for your opportunity. Okay. So people, if I, it's a sunny day right here. So if I go, hey, y'all want to go play hoops, right? Everybody will come outside and play hoops, right? And you say, oh, I want to be a professional basketball player. But then when it's raining and you say, hey, let's go play hoops, everybody's like, man, I ain't going outside. It's freezing outside, man. It's hella wet outside. But that person who goes to shoot, he's got patience because he knows through that diligence of coming out and shooting all the time, when the big game comes, when the scout shows up, you know what I'm saying? When the pressure's on from that other high school that they know they got a good defensive dude over there, he's going to be ready. Right? So patience isn't just sitting around. It's doing the work anyway when there's really no reason to do it. Now, what is courage? Courage is about, a lot of times, and I'm speaking for myself personally, there's a lot of things that I didn't do well because I was afraid to succeed. Right? And so you see somebody who's like a singer and you go, hey, Jerry, what do you like to do? I'm a singer. You know what I'm saying? Da, 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 da. And then so you go to see, Beyonce sing, and then Beyonce's coming down the stairs and she falls. And they're like, oh my God, we got to take her to the hospital. Who here can sing? And you go, Jerry, you can sing. Right? And then Jerry's like, well, I mean, I can sing, but it's like, no, dude, you got to have the courage right now to step on that stage and be like, oh, all right, give me the mic, bro. Oh, right. And then you get on it. It's like, oh, Beyonce fell and Jerry saved the day with his great voice. And you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of us are afraid. And so we need that courage in the long run to finish what we start. You know what I mean? It takes courage. I don't care whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's just, like I said, my son just graduated college. My daughter just finished her first year of college. It takes courage to do all of that stuff, right? It takes courage to apply for a job you really want, but think you might not get. You know what I'm saying? And so if you can make these things a consistent pattern, you will get breakthroughs that other people just simply don't get, right? And so just like on a chessboard, like pawns are short range weapons. Knights are mid-range weapons. Bishops and queens are long-range weapons. Right? Even a king is a short range weapon because he can protect a pawn to get a new queen, right? There's all kinds of weaponry, but you have to know what weapon do you need right now. If you use a knight to do a bishop's job, you're coming up short. If you use a rook to do a pawn's job, you're coming up short. You need to know what weaponry is best. Is it closed guard, right? De la Hiva, right? Straight open guard, you know what I'm saying? Rubber guard, right? And you got to have the sensibility to figure out for the short and the long term, what is going to get you through.
I really like that. The 3PA being greater than one NT. It's like, man, that's just good, useful, actionable advice that everyone can implement into their own life.
It's empowering because you realize that it doesn't matter what happens. You still have options. Like, you know what I mean? And that's my thing is like, even when it looks like A and B is all there is, there's always a C. There's almost always a C, right? But you have to be patient enough and you have to train yourself to be creative enough to look for that opportunity. And then be courageous enough to try and close on it.
Because, that again, courage. Huge, especially in martial arts. Sometimes we have people who go into competitions and, of course, some win, some lose. But, people, try and put it down to, win or learn or, it's as long as you enjoyed it or everything. But it is just that, hey, you got out there while everyone else is on the couch, that's enough, man. That's actually...
It really is. And it doesn't feel like that when the other guy's getting his hand raised. And it doesn't feel like that when you didn't make it to the podium or you're not at the top of the podium. But the truth of the matter is, it takes a lot of courage to get out there and compete in anything. Be it cheerleading, chess, jiu-jitsu, it takes a lot. You know what I mean? And so you have to be patient with yourself and give yourself time to have that presence and that patience, and your moment of victory always comes. It's very rare that someone stays in a thing and stays horrible forever. It's very rare. Very hard to do. You know what I mean? You'll grow, but you have to take the shots. You have to learn from the damage you take, and listen to other people, and you'll be good.
Yep. I like that. And I think part of that is probably while you're in the game of whatever it is you're doing, is paying attention to the details of what's going on within that game. And I think that's something else that you talk about with pawn structure and
yeah, pawn structure.
Okay. Can you expand on that a little?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I talk about pawn structure and paying attention to details. And, pawns we know are technically the weakest pieces on the board. But if you have what's called a pawn chain, where like the pawns are holding together and connected in a diagonal, if anything takes that pawn, the pawn behind it will always capture whatever took it. Right. And when you're playing a chess game, I used to play with this one kid. He used to kill me when we would play, because we playing games, and he would always have this one pawn that he would push like a little bit, like halfway, but then like let him sit for the rest of the game. And then when you start losing, like everybody kind of starts losing pieces. There's this one pawn on like the A file who's like 3 squares away. Right? And you have a knight. So you can't get over there in 3 hops. He's going to get a queen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's these attention to details, right? Understanding how connected pawns can protect you, and how little details in the pawn structure can be the difference between you getting a queen towards the end of the game or being so far away you never have a chance to really get him over there. And so these are the things that we need to pay attention to in life, right? Like, how many times have you almost had a clock choke, but you didn't have, you know what I mean? You reached too deep or you were way too shallow. How many times you watch somebody do a cross choke from the closed guard and you're like, he is real enough. That's not going to work. And you see him just burning his forearms out like, ugh! And you're like, bro, you're not getting that choke. It's not happening. You know what I'm saying? But once you make a habit of like, so where do I want my thumb? Oh, and I turn the blade like that. He ain't leaving now. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand those things.
Yep.
And so that's all part of the pawn structure.
Yep. I like that, because I've been actually doing that a lot with my jiu-jitsu training, is focusing, especially with collar chokes, is like break it, like, because we one hand here, bring it together, but really just stopping to take a moment and think, hey, okay, I'm trying to block the 2 carotid arteries right around this position of the neck. Stop. Where's my pressure going? Is it on those carotid arteries?
Right.
If it's not, what can I do to fix it?
Right. Does he have too much posture for me to really do this? Right. Or do I have him close enough to me? Right. Like, there's all kinds of stuff, man. And those details make all the
that's the difference. The difference that makes the difference. That's what we're all about here, mate. And so going on with the pawns, there's also an idea of the pawn to queen threat assessment, or is that what you was that covered in that as well?
Yeah. No. So pawn to queen threat assessment is a little different. And so I kind of liken this. I used to coach soccer for a bunch of years, and like, if you're playing soccer with someone and a teammate yells at you like, "Come on, man, get on the ball, bro! Like, don't let him da-da-da," and you start thinking about him yelling at you about the ball, you're distracted. That's not what's important. What's important is that you just play your best game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Don't worry about that and keep it moving, right? And if you stay on top of your player, or if you stay dribbling and maneuvering, you're gonna win, right? And that's the queen. That, focus on your queen and what she can do, right? You have to understand that you can't be distracted by every little thing. Like, what is the most important thing at this time, right? Like, I remember one time when I was a white belt, this dude was trying to choke me. I think it was a cross choke, right? Or something. And I was like trying to pass the guard. And I wasn't defending the choke, and Half was just sitting there shaking his head like, what the heck? And I said, dang, I don't understand what happened. He said, when someone's choking you, deal with the choke, okay? Don't try to pass a guy's guard if he has your neck. You have to make sure, right? That's the priority, right? And so it's like training yourself to see the priority of the moment, right? Rather than doing what you want to do when you really can't. I want to pass his guard. I'm not going to, because I'm about to have to wake up in a little bit if I don't address the choke, right?
No, that makes a lot of sense. Those same things happen to me with, I think of baseball bat choke or something, they bait the guard pass
exactly,
and then,
right?
Oh yeah, okay.
You're trying to like do
there was
something.
a reason they allowed that. Okay,
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
All right, too late for me.
Yep.
But well played for them. And so, I mean, and there's also with the porn the idea of the poison porn.
Yes. Now this is something that a lot of kids get. This is one of the things of all the things I came up with that I noticed they got quickly. So a poison pawn is a thing where someone will put a pawn out there that looks really easy, and you'll usually have to use your queen to go get it. But then once you put that queen out there, your opponent can set up other pieces to kind of trap her and then take her, right? And so what was the deal? Like in chess, a lot of people don't know that all the pieces have value. So the pawn is worth 1, the knights and the bishops are worth 3, the rooks are worth 5, and the queen is worth 9. Now the king, he is priceless, so he kind of doesn't have, because if there's no king, there's no game, right? But she's worth 9, right? So you just basically gave $9 for $1. I always kind of equate it for money, like someone you took $1, but then they took $9 from you, right? That's a big loss. Nobody wants to deal with that. So don't go out there. How many times in the day or in your life have you taken something that looked easy and cheap, right? But in the long term, it cost you, right? And so what happened, this is a true story. There was a kid who I was trying to mentor, but I really didn't mentor him. And he lived in an area that was pretty boring and stuff like that. This was when the iPhones first came out. So him and his friends were totally bored. A guy comes down the street on a bike, a new BMX bike that looked hella sick, and he had an iPhone in his hand. And they were like, let's beat his ass and take the phone. So they did. Bing, boom. Took the phone. Hey, this is fresh. What does this thing do? And then they're pedaling around, whatever, they take off. When they come home, cops are waiting for him at the house. The DA charged them all as adults. The dude didn't even graduate high school. He went straight to jail, bro.
Damn.
Didn't graduate. Okay? Because they charged him with like more than 6 felonies. Now they got it broken down to 2. They were able to negotiate it down to like two felonies, but he still had to do time. Right? Now, what was that about? In the short run, it's like, we're bored. We want to have fun. Let's go slap this dude up, show that we're the alphas, take his stuff. But in the long run, you ruined your whole life. You ruined your whole life, right? And so I tell people, what is the poison pawn? Like when you're hanging with the homies and they go, let's rob that fool. You should know, as fun as that might be and as much empowered as you're going to feel in that moment, that is not a good idea.
Yep.
Right? Not a good idea. Now in business, I'll show you how it also plays out. True story. Friend of mine, VP at a Silicon Valley company, killing the game. He's not a VP. He's like a top director. They make him. They're like, hey, do you want this position? He's like, yeah, I'll take the position. So then he takes a position. They have a whole ceremony for him, whatever, right? 2 weeks later, oh, yeah, we have to cut all our executives. You're out. So he was like a VP for like 2 months.
Yep.
Right? He was a VP for 2 months. Now, when he took that position, he didn't think about the idea that they might be getting rid of people. He wasn't thinking about like, where's the company? What is the trajectory of the company at? Right now, same situation. A few years later, another friend has a position at a growing media company. And they call him into the office one day and they're like, we think you're awesome. We'd like to give you a promotion. He sat back and thought of everything. And he was like, I don't want that promotion. They were like, what? But we're killing the game. He's like, you know what? I just like what I'm doing. Held on. Wave of layoffs came. A year later. Whoosh. He's kept his position. They wanted another promotion. He didn't take it. Another wave of layoffs. Once the company got stable, then he took the thing.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? Because he thought, and dude, these two people don't even know each other. They're unrelated people, unrelated industries. Okay? But this is about not taking what looks easy at the time. Right? So you don't pick up the poison pawn. The poison pawn can be a lot. Anything that looks easy without like contemplating serious reflection, you should just ignore it, because in the long run it can cost you.
Yeah, I hear that. I won't go into any personal stories of my own that I think that, but I get you. We've all done it, right?
Yeah. We've all done it.
Yeah. That's a universal life experience, probably.
Sometimes the poison pond is another queen.
I know exactly what you're saying. So I guess that's the idea of, things being too good, maybe too good to be true, being careful about
not really assessing the total value of what the offering is. You don't have to pick up everything that someone offers you.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah. And just being able to step back and make a decision based on more than just the initial allure of something and
the excitement.
The excitement. Because everyone can get wrapped up in the excitement. That's for sure. And then, so there's another idea you talk about that's probably might be the opposite of that, which is that people can actually block their blessings. Is that?
Yeah. It's called Blocking Your Blessings. And these are all worksheets, by the way, that are in the book. But blocking your blessings comes from a chess game that I saw where basically these two dudes were playing and one guy had another guy's king surrounded pretty much. And I was pretty sure the game was going to be over. Then when I bounced and I came back, the guy who had his king surrounded had won the game. And so I couldn't believe it. I didn't understand how the dude who had his king surrounded had won. And I was like, so can we run it back a little bit? What do you remember about this position? Show me what happened. So he's like, we were here, then we were there, then we were here, then we were there. So he did that, I did that, and he did this, and I did that. And what I realized is the guy who was attacking didn't have any coordination of his pieces. And so many times he was actually in his own way, and the pieces weren't protecting each other. So the king and some pawns were able to take some big pieces, and it totally ruined the initial advantage, right? And that was probably the first life and chess lesson that I could discern. And I remember saying, how many times do you think you get in your own way in your life? And he was like, oh, I don't know, dude. So we started thinking about it, right? And it's this idea, a lot of us, we talk about haters. We talk about, oh, so-and-so at the job don't like me, or so-and-so in school don't like me, or these fools at the jiu-jitsu school don't like me, or whatever. But how much of it is really just you, bro, not training? How much of it is you, not really thinking about how your diet is, or how much cardio do you do outside of training, right? Or you're in school, but how much homework do you really do? They say that you suck at math, but you don't really study. Tell the truth. You're not really studying. You know what I'm saying? So they're not really hating. And so it's about taking responsibility for your own shortcomings.
Yep.
Instead of blaming others.
Yeah. Okay. That's huge, especially in martial arts training. It's you have to, it's all on you, it's easy to, the training partners aren't good enough. The gym needs better, whatever.
Coach isn't talking to me enough.
Yeah. That's a big one. They should be paying more attention to me, which, maybe in some situation, maybe that's true, of course, but a lot of the time it's, hey, you got to take charge, and
you gotta step in. Totally.
Yeah. And so with the, you do break it down into the 3 phases of combat with that martial arts element. So combat, safety, position, and finish.
And finish, right? Safety, position, and finish. Yep. This was an idea that Gumby gave to me over at Heroes Martial Arts in San Jose. Shout out to Gumby. You know what I'm saying? All my homies over there. You know what I'm saying? And, he was like, this essentially is the 3 phases of what a fight is, whether it's individual or, whatever. So first you keep yourself safe, then you improve your position, then you try to finish your opponent. So I started thinking about that in chess, right? Castling early. I like to castle early, right? Getting my king safe, then I can be more free to attack. Once I know that my castle is tucked away and he's got some people in front of him, okay, he's good. Now I can go, right? And then once you get to the highest level of a positional dominance, now you go try to kill the king. Just like in jiu-jitsu, right? You take him down, try to pass the guard. If you got to pass the guard, get the mount. And then once you get to the highest position, you go for a finish, right? You try to end the match. And so a lot of times, if you're trying to, like the time I was getting choked out, but I'm trying to pass, right? I need to, it kind of goes back to some of these things slightly overlap where you get what is my priority, right? If you're trying to finish a guy, but you don't have the full position, he may escape the mount, right? If you try to checkmate a person, but you haven't really secured all the square cutoffs, you could lose your queen, right? In the course of it, there's checkmate. I actually know there's a knight right there. Boop. Now you just lost your queen, right? Because you didn't really have the position the way you thought you had it. So it's about really kind of understanding the totality of which phase you need to be in through the course of your battle.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think everyone in martial arts would relate to that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's another idea that you've got, worksheets, which I'm going to recommend everyone gets the book too to go through them, is the who controls your options, your illusion of options. Sorry.
Yeah, totally right. And so, I spoke about this a little bit before, like where people try to make you think like it's A or it's B, but there's a C. Really, it's A to Z. There's all kinds of options, right? And like, look at this situation we're in right now, right? Like, life worked really different just a few months ago. And now it's totally different. But guess what? People still got to go to school. People still got to try to exercise. People still got to try to get information. People still got to, right? So I hate not being able to train right now, right? Mm-hmm. But what do I do for cardio? I'm jumping rope. What do I do solo drills. You know what I'm saying? And that's going to be what my jiu-jitsu is for a while, right? And so even when things look broke down and shut down, that more often than not, there is an opportunity for you to step up, to step into something, to, find a way. And again, if you use your jiu-jitsu training, you use your chest training, you use your artistic training to look for new opportunities, you usually will. So, but if you believe that people say, no, it's just A or B. No, it's not A or B. If technology and the history of technology in the last 30 years has taught us anything, it's that we can find a way. Whether, look when nobody used cell phones at all. Remember when people used to be like, oh, why do I need a personal computer? Why would I ever need a computer in my home? Yeah. Let me take a computer from your home right now and you can just like start cooking meat like a caveman because you got no options because you don't have a computer in your home. You know what I'm saying? Like things change quick. So it's about, look at all that innovation, right? Look inside jiu-jitsu, right? Look at how the Japanese take Kodokan Judo to a point, right? Maeda goes to Brazil. Helio takes what they gave him, builds on it. His sons come to America. American wrestlers and people like Eddie Bravo, right? Oh, what if we did this? What if we did that, right? Because we already have a big wrestling tradition here. And so the way that we approach jiu-jitsu is way different just because of Greco-Roman and freestyle and folk traditions, right? And so then jiu-jitsu gets super a whole new spectrum of positions, right? And then you look at all of that, and then the internet happens, right? Because I remember, like, when certain moves were rumors before YouTube. Hey, have you heard of the reverse standing omoplata? Yeah, I don't know how it works, but I heard it's pretty dope. You can go find out on YouTube in 5 minutes, bro. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? In competition. See it played out. You know what I mean? Whereas before, a lot of techniques were secret. Half will show you something. Don't nobody show this. But check this out. You know what I mean? There isn't that anymore. Every school had that. Right? Had a certain series of moves or a concept that they kept to themselves. Now, because of the internet, you know what I'm saying? Some blue belt can do something spontaneously, and we all see that and go, oh, I'm about to add that to the footlock repertoire. That was hot. Right? And now we're all doing it, right? So, this is how quick innovation happens. So we always have.
Oh man, it's changed so quick. Even, the last month or two. I mean, over the last couple of years, everyone started putting techniques online, and that, it became before no one would do it, and now everyone's got instructionals and got their, world champs got their YouTube, and then.
Yeah, I remember when MG in action hit. Remember when Marcelo was like, yeah, you can just come in and I'll just show everything. And we're like, what? Yeah. You know what I mean?
And then, everyone was still like, oh, you can't learn jiu-jitsu online. Well, now in the last couple of months, man.
That's the only thing we're doing.
In the last month.
It's that or nothing, homie.
You better be learning your jiu-jitsu online over YouTube. Otherwise, where everyone's going broke,
That's right. And you ain't going to survive, homie. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't going to survive.
That's it. Which I'm fine with. I'm saying, because we've got to make
exactly.
But it is funny how quickly attitudes and opinions can change on something like that.
Right. Remember when jiu-jitsu guys would be like, katas are trash. Who needs katas? I need real people, bro. We just gotta be out here, you know what I'm saying? Running the shoots, dog. Running the shots, you know what I'm saying? That's what it is. Yeah. I won't be seeing you for like 2 years. So, enjoy the katas.
Everyone's doing katas now. Everyone wish they had more katas. People at home coming up with katas.
Yeah. You know who the first person I knew who had katas in jiu-jitsu?
Who?
Denny Prokopos. Because even though he trained with Eddie, he lived here in the Bay.
Yep.
So when Eddie would show him stuff, he would invent solo drills on his own so he could remember all that stuff. And then he'd come back and still be as good, if not better, than a lot of the dudes that were trained with Eddie all the time. And it was because of those katas, those solo drills. And then a lot of other people eventually started doing it, I think, on their own. But I'm just saying in my life, you know, I remember Denny being like the first dude.
It's funny how much Eddie Bravo and 10th Planet is coming up in my conversations just because of how many areas they did seem to innovate. I was talking to BMAC yesterday.
Yeah.
Brandon McCatherine. I think I got the name right. But we was talking about how the 10th Planet warm-ups are really katas, right? That those guys do now. They're totally katas. But
right. And that was something that was unthinkable, right? Right? Because really, if you look at the 10th Planet, like the way that they run the stuff now, like those are just katas now chained.
Exactly, right?
You know, they're just chained katas as opposed to like random individual katas, which, you know, armbar drill.
Yep.
You know, guard pass drill. Okay, now armbar pass, blah, 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 you know, and that's what those things become. And it's beautiful, man. And that's a blend of jiu-jitsu culture with technology culture. You know what I mean? That makes all of that possible. Because if you rewind the game 15 years, it's impossible. It doesn't exist.
That's right.
And even if you have it in some fragmented segment that's not, you know, applicable on a global level.
And then, so in terms of blending it all together and, you know, bringing it all together, I mean, even 10th Planet, when they were coming out, there was a lot of pushback against how they were doing it, taking off the gi, and that's going to ruin jiu-jitsu. And
yeah, exactly.
You know, that deviations, creating more diversity was actually going to be terrible to these traditions. But you've also got a worksheet talking about how there's unity in diversity.
Yeah, unity and diversity, right? And so that idea is that it's got several layers to it, like most things in chess or jiu-jitsu, right, or hip-hop, it's got several layers to it. The first is that, you know, you have a specific way of playing your jiu-jitsu game, right? You know, like, are you more of a passer or are you more of a guard player? Just out of curiosity.
A passer now, white belt, blue belt, guard player.
Right. You know what I mean? So, right, like, when I started, I was more of a guard player, right? I was more of a guard player. Then I became more of a passer. But the idea is you evolve and you have different strengths, and then other people have things that you just don't have, right? And so the idea is, like, mentally, you need to surround yourself with people who don't think like you. Because if everybody thinks like you, you'll fall victim to the same traps. So, like, on the streets, why do gangsters always fall, and people who be in gangs fall for the same stuff? Because no one tells them, you know what? This gang shit's trash, actually. I'm going to quit and go get a job, right? Because they fall victim to the same thing. Oh, I'm on a gun charge. Oh, I'm on them things add up. Next thing you know, the DA done throwing hella stuff at you, and now you doing hella time, right? Like, you need to have someone who thinks different than you and not be mad at people who think different than you, right? It's good that Eddie Bravo thought different. It's good that Haleo thought different than Maeda. Right? If everybody just would have stuck with what came out of the Kodokan, we'd literally be doing Japanese techniques from a long time ago. Right? But we have to think differently, right? It's also about unity and diversity, is about having different kinds of people around you, right? Like, I'm an African-American Muslim, but I hang out with atheists who are white from Germany. Or I might hang out with, you know, a Canadian Catholic. It doesn't matter, bro. You need different people around you so that you can be growing. Because if you don't have different people around you, they're going to give you ideas that are going to change your life. They might give you ideas that save your life. And it doesn't matter where these ideas come from. It only really matters that you get them and you're able to exercise them. And so I try to not have too many people that think like me around me as a general rule. You know, because I think it's dangerous. And just in the old days, like I talked about, right? Dudes from Gracie Baja would never train with 10th Planet, right?
Yep.
Dudes from Nova União. What? Training with Gracie Barra? That was blasphemy of the highest order, but you come up missing. Oh, I heard you was training with Nova União last week. No! Right, you get dragged into the basement. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, dude, you take it all, man. It's all beautiful. It's all jiu-jitsu, man. We need to relax. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We need to relax and understand that every innovation is good for the game. Every innovation is good for the game, even if it's not for everybody. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's the vibe. Yep.
And I love that, the point about having different viewpoints and bringing, other people's perspectives in and making friends with people who have different thoughts and ideas or just coming from a different background, because especially in today's world where people get into their silos driven by online social media, where the algorithms start making sure you only ever see people you agree with, and you can just click away, and
it's not good, man.
I think that's
it's not good.
I think that's a big problem. That
it is. It's a huge social problem, man. And it creates illusions of just being right all the time. Yeah. It creates illusions of superiority, whether that's racial, political, social, right? It's not real, man. It's not real. And so, again, Hip Hop Chess Federation, first and foremost, about any of this stuff is really about nonviolence, man.
Yeah.
Right? About being a peaceful human being, about not using the martial arts. I'm always sickened and saddened when you see somebody who comes in and let's say they're kind of like an off-brand nerd, because so many of us are, right? And then they start learning jiu-jitsu and they become the bully that they said they hated. And you're like, whoa, so you get a blue belt now? You coming in a leather jacket, shoving fools?
Yeah.
What happened, bro? This isn't, you know what I'm saying? And that, getting back to the philosophy lacking in jiu-jitsu. Right? That's how that happens.
Yep.
Because the guy comes, he sees Colby Covington, and then he thinks, he wants to be like Colby. Well, you might want to wrestle like Colby, but there could be some other aspects of Colby that are socially troubling and not good for a greater diverse society. And so, but you can like his wrestling though. Take his wrestling, trash the rest of that, bro, and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? I remember there was a guy who does jiu-jitsu who, he's Jewish, and we were talking about Alekin, he played for the Germans, World War II, who's kind of a Nazi and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And he told me how much he liked certain things from Alekin. And I was like, you study his work? I mean, that dude was like a Nazi. And he was like, yeah, but he was good though. So I can see that he was a Nazi, see what he took tactically, and then trash the rest of him because he was a Nazi and I hate him. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, that's awesome. You know what I'm saying? And so I've really striven to kind of develop that. You know what I mean? Where I don't let any really bad aspect of a person keep me from seeing the good value in a lot of whatever else they brought to the game.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, no, it's a big topic of conversation, that one alone, if you can separate the art from the artist, or, if it's possible.
It's a grimy thing, and it's not always possible, to be frank with you, but where it is, and you should. Yeah,
I hear that. Yeah, man, because, especially that illusion of being right all the time now, it's just so frequent that just... You can go through. It's going to
be a cancer to humanity if we can't chill out.
So bad.
It's going to be a cancer to humanity.
Yeah, you can go through now with your worldviews and never be proven wrong if you don't want to. It's totally up to you.
It's true. You can just be in your bubble.
Do you want to be right all the time? I've got the worldview for you. Just come over here. And there's lots of them too. It's not just one or two. There's little subgroups and it's
totally.
That's a topic for another day.
Yeah. But you're right though. It's real.
Because this has been a long discussion, but it's one that I really wanted to have. And
I'm really grateful, man. This is fantastic. So I appreciate you for having me on.
Oh, man, my pleasure. So as I'm thinking about the clock, maybe you can tell me about what the chess clock represents in the Hip Hop Chess Federation,
Man, I'm really glad that you asked that as one of the last questions, because it's a really big deal. So in chess, right, there's a clock. And so basically, let's say we're going to have a 5-minute game. right? I start and I hit the clock, and what that's going to do is when I press the clock, it starts your time. So your time starts ticking down from 5. When you move, you hit the clock and my clock starts ticking down from 5. Now, if neither one of us checkmate each other, whoever ran out of time first loses, right? And so this is a big deal because in life, all of us only have a limited amount of time and we don't know, right? Like America's lost like 80,000 people from COVID at this point, right?
Yeah.
4 months ago, they were thinking about what they were going to do 20 years from now.
Yep.
You understand? And they're not here for real. And the only difference between them and us is that our time hasn't come yet. You understand? So every time our heart beats, every time we blink, that's one less blink. That's one less heartbeat, right? And so the chess clock represents the finality of death, right? And maximizing the use of your time on this earth while you're here. If anything, COVID has helped refine my Islamic and Stoic self to be all of who I really want to be and do all of what I really want to do. I had a situation where a friend of mine spent most of their time, just looking for the right person. After a bunch of years, they found this person and she was like, yeah, I'm about to get married in a couple months, moving over to this one state, going to get together and we're going to, we're engaged. He's dead. He's dead. And I was like, yo, that is some heartbreaking, triple tragic stuff right there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
To finally find the love of your life, be getting ready, got your new job, everything looks good, and now that person is dead. And so this is why the chess clock is here. It is a reminder of death. It is a reminder of the finality, not to be morbid, not to be crude, not to be cold, but like, everybody hearing this at some point will no longer be here. And at some point, I will no longer be here. So what are you doing today, right, to bring yourself joy? What are you doing today to enrich your higher physical, spiritual, mental clarity, right? Because we all, and I'm triple guilty of it. That's why I built a lot of this stuff, is to break my own cycles of laziness, break my own cycles of being caught up and down on myself, break my own cycles of creating more stress around things I had more control of than I understood, right? That's what the chess clock is about, man. The finality of life and having gratitude from that place, right? Later, when I learned about Stoicism, the Stoics say memento mori, right? Remember death, right?
Yep.
Because it's a purification of your gratitude. If you understand memento mori, you're going to go hug your mom. If you remember memento mori, you're going to tell your wife, you're going to tell your husband, you're going to take a minute and tell your son, hey, come here, man. I love you, bro. I love you. And here's why, right? Because you could walk out that door and might not come back, right? And we've never been in a time where that's been more real for all of us than right now.
Yep.
So the chess clock is real.
I hear that. Memento mori. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's a good point to finish this up on, I think. And I'd love to have you come back. We can do it. We can do another one.
I would love to, man. And I got to have you on Bishop Chronicles because I got a lot of questions for you, man.
It would be my honor. Trust me. It's. I think
we'll hook that up like real soon.
Yeah,
I'll get you on.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're wonderful. What you're doing is great work, and yeah, I'd love to talk about Stoic philosophy, Islam. I'd love to talk about your history in the music industry as well, because I know you're friends with Eazy-E, Tupac.
Yeah, back in the day, me and Easy, me and Pac, you know what I'm saying? I got crazy stories, boy.
I'm sure you do. I want to hear them. I think, you're around when Mac Dre was around.
Yeah.
Like, that whole movement must have just been fascinating.
Bonkers.
Yeah, I want to hear about that and how these movements happen, and
Yeah, I would love.
That's a great story.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have you on Bishop Chronicles, bro.
Please, and
I'm gonna have you on Bishop Chronicles.
And I know you were even at a retreat with RZA last week. You said, and it was a Shaolin monk teaching martial arts. Or?
Yeah, I got invited by RZA. I got invited by RZA to do a thing with Tazo T. It was called Comp Tazo. And it was, we did it in Shaolin in New York on Staten Island.
Wow.
I was in London at the time when I got the invite for my 50th birthday. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend my time saying yes to more things. For, who is the 50-year-old Adisa? I'm asking myself. Does he still do jiu-jitsu? Maybe, maybe not. Does he intermittent fast still? Maybe, maybe not. Is he a vegan? Is he a meat eater? Is he carnivore? What's happening? And I was like, whatever else I'll figure out, for right now, I'll just say yes more. I get a message, and this lady's like, hey, RZA wanted to know if you could come teach at this thing. Now, keep in mind, I'm on vacation. And so I say yes. Now, I haven't even got back to work yet, and I just committed to going somewhere else.
Yep.
So I don't know how I'm going to get there. Like, I had a ticket for New York before I even left London. You understand?
Okay.
So I get back to work, and my boss is like an 80-year-old physicist who knows nothing about hip hop and cares much less about it. And so I pull him into his office, and I said, hey, how you doing? He's like, great, man. How was London? I was like, London was great. I had a fantastic time, but I got to run something by you. You know who the Rolling Stones are, correct? And he's like, yes. And I said, I want you to imagine that Mick Jagger wants you to come to his house and talk about physics for a day. What did you do? What would you say to that? And he was like, I would do it. And I said, well, there's a group called the Wu-Tang Clan, and they are the Rolling Stones of right now. And their Mick Jagger, a man by the name of RZA, who you need not know, has invited me to come speak about chess. And he was like, you should go do that then. I was like, thank you. So I go, and it's me, RZA, and a Shaolin monk named Xian Ming. And I taught about chess and life to a group of young professionals who were hitting creative walls in their life. Some of them were in tech. Some of them were, rappers. Some of them were dancers. You know what I mean? Some of them were comedians. And we spent a day, but Camp Tazo went for several days. But on my day, I met with Xian Ming and RZA, and there was meditation. Xian Ming taught kung fu. I taught about chess and life. And it was bonkers. It was a beautiful thing, man. It was a beautiful thing. That was like in February. And I'm very grateful to RZA for always having been a strong supporter of Hip Hop Chess Federation. And me personally, he didn't have to invite me out, bro. Like he could have invited anybody. He could have invited any grandma. He could have invited Magnus Carlsen. He could have invited all these other people, but he chose me, And so that was a very beautiful thing. And I actually talk about that on my podcast. I have a thing about the whole Camp Tazo experience. And then when I got back, I was so blown away. I started thinking about all the time that me and RZA have done different stuff. And I found audio of me and RZA speaking to incarcerated kids in St. Louis. I had lost the file. And so I added that file to another show. So you hear the kids in the crowd. You hear we're talking to incarcerated boys and girls during the Ferguson uprising. So like St. Louis was on fire. And we were literally in Juvenile-hall talking to kids on lockdown. And so this is the kind of stuff that if you tune into Bishop Chronicles, you can check out. But, I feel blessed to have this life. I feel blessed to have this opportunity. I do want to give a quick shout out to my brother, Paul Moran, who passed away, from Open Mat Radio. You know what I'm saying? He passed away not too long ago. When you talked about unity and diversity, that was an event that he came and spoke at a couple years ago. And his idea was to work with me to make unity and diversity something that we did everywhere. I don't have the footage or the audio from that, but I'm in search of it. And, I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I'm grateful for my friendship with Paul and all the people in jiu-jitsu. If I ever trained with you, if you were ever my instructor, because I was the ultimate crayonch and lazy person, I am grateful for you, and know that I have never forgotten any of you, whether you were my training partners or you were my instructors. And I appreciate you all for improving me.
That's beautiful,
and
man.
I appreciate you, Sonny, for improving me and giving me this opportunity, and that's true.
And I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you too. Don't worry, straight back at you. Don't worry, feelings mutual, mate. That's great. So check out check out your podcast, Bishop Chronicles. I'm going to go do one on there as well. So we'll hook it up. We'll put the links into show notes for that. Yep. We'll also there'll also be the links to buy the book Bobby Bruce and the Bronx, which
on Amazon, Kindle and paperback.
There you go. So you don't even have to leave the house. You can get it. You got the worksheets in there. You can go through it. It's a great book. And also you've got some jiu-jitsu instructionals that I'll put links into the description of. Iron hook scroll and the cloud scroll.
And the cloud scroll. So the iron hook scroll are advanced closed guard techniques that'll really help you. It's an overhook system, an advanced overhook system. It's technically it's a long man's game, but I have short man's adaptions. You know what I mean? It's a free PDF that you can download online. If you just put iron hook scroll BJJ, you'll find it and you can download the PDF. I have some videos on YouTube from when I first did the iron hook scroll. Then later I did the cloud scroll, which is more advanced, overhook techniques, that I think, are truly, like the armbar from the iron hook. I think I can say virtually that it is the strongest armbar from the closed guard in terms of not getting socked while doing it and in terms of being able to finish uninterrupted. And the cloud scroll are things that developed from people trying to defend the iron hook. Like how if you lean too far one way, it gives you option in another way. It's that kind of thing. But I think that you'll like it. Kid Pellegro, fan of the iron hook scroll. Denny Prokopos, fan of the cloud scroll. There's a lot of top tier dudes. Gumby, from On the Mat, Machine over at Ralph Gracie. A lot of other people have given me thumbs up for the stuff that's in there. And I have to say, and we'll talk about this on another day, but every technique from the iron hook scroll was born from transcendental meditation.
Boom.
None of it came from my mind.
Boom.
That's God's truth. That's why I haven't written nothing on jiu-jitsu no more, because it hasn't come to me.
That's where we'll get into that on another one for sure. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Because this has been great. I'm going to go now play some chess.
He's getting that chess.
Play some chess.
I love it.
Put some liquid swords on. Maybe go for a run.
That's
Do
right.
some katas.
That's right.
Get into
That's
it.
That's right.
And
liquid swords, boy.
And we'll do this again. Adisa, thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your time. You take care.
Likewise.
You have been listening to the Sonny Brown Breakdown. Until next time, you can visit sonnybrown.net to find out more ways to break it down.